So guys, I think the next topic we want to talk about is really Destiny. Destiny the game, obviously. Now, I personally have not played Destiny for many a month, potentially many a year. You know, if memory serves me correctly. All I want to know is, has Destiny changed? Does Destiny have a future? Is Destiny how I remember it? Because you know, I used to love Destiny 1. I basically kind of played that, I think, halfway into its life cycle. Then I kind of start tailing
Yeah.
off. Destiny 2 came out, finished the campaign, maybe a couple of the campaigns, can't remember now. And then I lost interest. You know, I found basically a bit more what I wanted in something like Warframe, for instance. Yeah, so I put aside Destiny and said, okay, we're not gonna Destiny anymore. We're gonna Warframe now. But I kind of want to. I just want to know what kind of state is that game in at the moment. Jay, I mean, you're probably the only Destiny fan on this on this podcast. So, go on, where do you start?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people listening probably don't know, but I'm a Destiny addict. It's probably I've played since beta, right? And so the game's been out what 7 years, maybe close to, and I've pretty much played every expansion, done every single raid, done pretty much all the content. And in that period, I've gone through periods of kind of almost like a love-hate relationship of kind of playing it intensely, as in it's the only game for about 5 years, and then getting a little bit miffed by Bungie not delivering, and there's been all sorts of reasons with like Activision and them trying things that have failed and etc etc. But I've kind of been on and off, and more recently maybe last year and a half, I've been part of a weekly raid group where we raid every Sunday. Even if there's no new content, the raids we just keep doing, right? And that's been quite fun. But I would say the last 2 months, 3 months, I've not played at all. I've completely deleted it. I actually thought, and it's probably the third time I've tried to walk away and I keep coming back. So that tells you my relationship with Destiny. But just coming back to your question, what you're asking is being asked by so many people, right? Players of Destiny, is it dead, is it dying? To gaming sites, to even other publishers, right? Who have gone through waves of trying to replicate what Destiny does and failing, and then labeling it as, Destiny's going to die, etc., etc. And it's not going to die, right? On a number of reasons, right? It's got a really stable, growing user base now. Most of them are probably hardcore players, but it's built in a number of kind of like free-to-play options, right? Has been one thing. It's firing on all cylinders in terms of story and narrative now. It's actually moving closer to where Halo was. I know it's not quite there, but in the last 2 years, and there are problems with the game, right? Some of the seasonal models, etc. But narrative-wise, it really is firing on all cylinders, right? And also, they, in the last year, and going forwards, they've announced the next 3 expansions. And recently, as part of the Witch Queen, they've announced the next one because the Witch Queen's coming out, right? And they've also said after the next 3 expansions, so there's 4 now, including Witch Queen, that will be the end of the saga. And then there's going to be another saga, which is going to carry on. And then you've probably also heard of rumours of them having kind of Destiny spin-offs, right, in the same world but not called Destiny. Bungie are too invested, they're too good of a studio, right, and they've got problems, right. The answer to your question, it's not going to die, but it's got a lot of problems which we can go into, right. But yeah, I mean, I don't know where you guys kind of sit, kind of being, but more so yourself, Joe, I think Alex has kind of dabbled a little bit with Destiny and kind of bounced off because he's had other games that probably suit his needs. But where are you at, Joe, then? Because you kind of lived and breathed Destiny. It was the only game in your probably console for a while, right? And didn't play anything else, like I've done for a long period.
That did happen for a long while. Like, kind of similar for Owl as well. I mean, one of the reasons that I enjoyed Destiny was just the gunplay. It was just a gunplay that was very familiar to Halo. You know, obviously, you know, when you kind of play with your mates, it's like a social event, isn't it? And at that time, we kind of always had, obviously, you have the draw of the raids, you have the draw of the strikes, you have the, what I call it, it's the want of getting that one weapon at the time.
Yeah.
Would it be the
It's
Galahorn at the time, or something else? Yeah, the chase. Yeah. The chase, right? I mean, I remember that there was this one assault rifle I never ever got, and I think, Al, do you remember Rob had it?
Yeah.
I never ever got it, and you know, I used to, you know, like I used to kind of want that rifle, and I thought, but the longer it went on, that whole the whole chase, you know, for those weapons kind of evaporated. I remember the last time I kind of sunk any kind of hours into it. What was that kind of arena challenge mode they had?
Oh,
was it Gambit?
No, this. I think it was way before that, wasn't it? It's
oh, it was a 3-player activity kind of thing.
Yeah, 3-player, small arenas.
Oh, Prison of Elders?
Yeah,
Prison of Elders.
Yeah, Prison of Elders. I mean, that was actually the last time I really sunk any sort of kind of. I mean, when I mean time, I mean like played through the night, hours and hours. Yeah. And then, you know, after that, it just started to tail off. Yeah. It just, like, Destiny started to change. Yeah, and I guess they were trying to kind of reboot the thing almost. Not quite reboot it, but you know, they were trying to basically move on to the next chapter of Destiny. So there going to be some growing pains. I understand that.
Yeah. So I think, you know, like, so D1 there was nothing like it at the time, right? And it's the first game I've actually, off the back of, had an actual community of friends that I play with regularly, right? And actually started speaking on a mic on a game. Before, I'd never really bothered. I used to play, you know, Call of Duty or whatever. And then when D2 came around, they tried to, like you said, tried to reinvent it, flopped, and then they took them a couple of years to kind of move away from being catered towards the mass market to moving back to being more RPG, and they're in a really good place now. They've got lots of mods, they've got the right balance of unique weapons, and no other game comes close to the gunplay. And I think some of the other studios that actually used to work with Bungie, like there's one called High Moon Studios that's working now with Call of Duty. You can actually see in Call of Duty, like, you know, the micro animations on the guns that make it feel, and the weight that make it feel more real, which Destiny and Bungie have nailed, right? They're catching up. That gap is getting smaller, but still, Bungie have got a formula that Destiny that works. Their main problem they've got now is creating enough content, and if they hire lots of people then consume it at a faster rate, and then still complain about the same thing. And I think what they've done now is they've kind of re-educated the audience of, we're only going to produce these big expansions, and you're going to have these small season updates, and we're not going to burn ourselves out because you're going to eat up all of it, right? And in that model, you know, are they creating enough engaging new environments, fun content to keep people going? I think that's what the main challenge is. But they showed the Witch Queen, and I was like, first of all, I thought, well, I was really looking for something new and innovative coming in there, but I saw the new guns, the new armor, and I reinstalled Destiny again. I actually removed myself from my raid groups for a few months. With Mike, I'm back on there again. I'm playing tomorrow. And to be honest, I do miss it, right? And I've actually lowered my expectations now with the game as well.
Interesting that.
And which suits me, right? I'm hearing enough from this Witch Queen, and we can probably talk a bit more.
I liked it. I mean, I actually... There's one thing I cannot fault with Destiny. It's gunplay. Yeah, gunplay.
And the raids.
Yeah, the raids. But when as the core mechanics, right? The thing that at its core that Destiny is, it is a good FPS. Gunplay is supreme in that thing, no doubt about it.
And the supers. You can keep firing a Nova Bomb or one of the other characters, and they've got loads of them, and it feels
empowering. Yeah, it's empowering.
It doesn't. I would say fresh, but the animations are so good, and now that, you know, now I've got a PS5 and I'm running it at 60 FPS 4K. It feels like a new game, and you can even run the multiplayer at 120. It is a beautiful looking game, and you can see they've invested in the game engine in the last couple of years. It's here to stay. Yeah, it's like someone described it. It's in a World of Warcraft state now. It's not going away. It's just they've said to themselves they're committing to Bungie's going to move to a 2-3 game studio. At the moment, it's only one. This will be their World of Warcraft. They'll carry on for another 10 years.
I've got a question, Jay, on this one. So obviously, Destiny's model previously was, the game in its original form, full price, expansions, certain amount, almost full price games, kind of on top of it. They changed to the free-to-play model. And have you spent anything on their additional, whether it's battle passes or any of the sort of premium currency that they have? Have you actually spent anything on it?
No, only in D1 when they first had the
silver,
store, which was called the Eververse store. Yeah, I bought some silver there, like £30 worth, and I never used it. And then it got lost when it went to D2. But since then, I haven't, right? But when they first came out with D2, where they really elevated the microtransactions, it was in a bad state. People complained about it, but they've got a good balance now where. And I'll come back to your question about their model because they're in a really weird place, right? But in terms of microtransactions, they will come out with free loot for free-to-play players. Plus, if you buy the season pass, there's an exotic and some other loot there as well behind a paywall. The really sexy stuff in the microtransaction Eververse store, which looks the guns and the ornaments for the guns and stuff. That's the best stuff is there. You have to buy, but what they have done now is every week you can buy with in-game currency you earn by playing, and they are dropping more of the good stuff in there. Right. So if you play the game for a whole season, you will get most of the new-looking stuff which you initially have to pay. Before it was completely locked behind. Yeah. So all the best stuff was, and I was really pissed off. But paywalled, right? But this is a good balance, right? Because it keeps you coming to seeing what's on the Eververse store, which I can buy with in-game currency versus real currency, and the good stuff comes on there. So they've got a good balance. But just coming back to the model, right? I heard this elsewhere. It's the only game that has, or one of the only main ones that has a big expansion every year. Right, which you pay for, which is like £30-40. Then you pay £10 for a seasonal pass every 3 months, but you can get that at a bit of a discount if you pay extra with the expansion pass, so maybe for 50 or 60 a year. Then they have microtransactions in the game as well as free to play. It's kind of like everything.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? Obviously you got the base game free to play now, which is good because that's what they didn't do before. Was back in even D1, they were still almost charging full price for the original until they got really late into the various expansions.
In these last 7 years, it's almost felt like an ongoing MVP of a game. Right? Like they're testing business models, game modes. I mean, the raids are stuck, the strikes are stuck, but there's been so many 3-player activities such as the Prison of Elders that they've messed around with all the formulas. Like they're trying everything before they're going to release another Final Destiny that's going to persist.
But I do think in any kind of anything that got a long lifespan, online service is going to be an MVP, whether they call it that or not.
And Joe, the weapon was it Vision of Confluence?
A Vision of Confluence.
Right.
God, I never get that weapon. It was so frustrating.
So you guys can, because they re-released that and updated it this year.
Is it any good?
With those weapons, well, I only got some of the weapons. I haven't got the Vision of Confluence actually yet, but they reworked the original raid, Vault of Glass raid, and released it this year. So you can come back and play if you want.
there is that, but I've got to say, I mean, you can't really call Destiny really a free-to-play, can you? I mean,
so what? Okay, so what they've done is, I think if they go back, it's free to play free to play everything that's 2 years old and beyond, before that, and it's free to play for PvP, and so you basically get the expansions that are more than 2 years old, all free, which is a lot of content.
That's still
it's
pretty
a hell
good.
of a lot. To be honest, they could get away with charging for that, but they give that free. So once you start playing as a free-to-play player, there's so much stuff you get sucked in, and then they know that as well, right? So
yeah, I wouldn't mind going back in to just see what that was like, because I'm perpetually going to be comparing it to Warframe, which is the most fair free-to-play game I've ever kind of encountered. They keep telling how it's kind of almost overwhelming what they give you. That's seemingly
it's crazy.
Free.
Yeah, it's crazy
but
how much
yet,
content's in there.
Yeah, they still make money out of that thing.
They from what I've seen, they've never had a content problem, have they? They've been able to produce ridiculous amount of content with a relatively small studio compared to Bungie. I think Bungie has spent a lot. This is my reading between the lines. They've had a good sized studio, and they flopped on the Destiny 2, Destiny original release. Had all sorts of problems because they pulled all the story out, and they ripped out loads of content. Then there's been this ongoing battle with trying to do what Activision say. Then they tried to reboot the game, had problems. Then they went away from Activision and they got themselves in the back path. And it almost feels like they've spent so much energy on being pulled in different directions and trying to just keep the train on the rails. And it seems a lot of that has all gone. And they're an independent studio and publisher. And I'm quite excited now to see what other games they're going to come out with. And Destiny's in a good place. And coming back to what you say, I think they've got a good rhythm where I can selfishly can play an expansion every year, grind it up really hard for 2-3 months, and then get my fill up throughout the year, but not feel like I'm missing out and play other games in between. And that's a good balance for me.
Yeah. No, don't understand. I mean, I do hope they basically find, and I'm sure they are finding their way. I'm pretty sure they're, because I looked up their concurrent players, peaks and the troughs, and that, at their peaks they're hundreds of thousands. They're doing quite well. But you kind of want Destiny to be everything that it could be, if you know what I mean. It's like you said, the narrative, the gunplay. If you're a live service game, you're all about that new content. You're all about that's everything. And I'm kind of making this analogy with Warframe, and I'm a total scratch record, right? But with Warframe, sometimes I just think the level of content they give you is almost overwhelming. You can't even if you go away from that game, right, you just can't. It doesn't feel you can catch up. Sometimes I'm sure some hardcore Warframe players will kind of absolutely disagree, right? But that's how it feels to me. And I'm not saying that Destiny should be that, but it should be closer to that.
There needs to be a better cycle, but that was always the problem with Destiny 1, right?
Yeah, how we left it, basically,
Yeah, the engine wasn't up to scratch, but I know obviously with Destiny 2, they had to redo a lot of development, right? That was part of the reasons why it was so shaky on day one, that because they had to restart and redo a lot of the stuff. They probably reused the same game engine as number one. so
when they brought it to PC, they brought another game studio. I think it might have even been High Moon Studios that works with Call of Duty now, or it might be another one. But as they ported it to PC, they also moved to an enhanced version of their current game engine, wherever it is. And it runs so well now. It's so buttery smooth. Menus loading into, it take ages loading to planets on the original PS4. All of that stuff is gone. With this Witch Queen thing going forwards, right? Actually, so I mentioned something about content, right? They've had no new PvP maps for the last 2 years, which I think is a bit of a disgrace.
Really?
It's frustrating. No, they have no PvP has had no love despite multiple promises, and I think that's because they're building another multiplayer game on the side. That's definitely one of their other two games they're doing, right? But they've now said they're going to commit next year to having more regular. There's been lots of structural people. The people that there's a guy, I forgot his name now, Luke Smith, who basically saved E1 by creating the Vault of Glass, and him and his crew, they've all moved up the hierarchy to the point where they're setting to the point they were setting the vision for Destiny and moved on to new franchises. I think they're coming out with deals with Netflix, and there's movies and TV series that are coming, and more magazines, right? They are. I think they're going to make it like a Star Wars world, and you guys haven't played it for a while. It really has that kind of promise. There's so much potential for Destiny. Now that's been one of my frustrations, right? I remember playing D1. I'm thinking, oh, they're going to have flying aeroplanes going to space and planets and all this stuff, but none of that materialised, right? But I think they've got a nice core gameplay, keep it going, and reinvent other, through their other games, because I just love Bungie basically.
Yeah, no, not knocking Bungie whatsoever, because when it's all said and done, they gave us Halo, and they gave us D1 when, for my money, D1 was great. Yeah, and I'm a bit lukewarm on D2. Who knows? Given enough time, that could also be great. Yeah. To be fair, I need to get back into it to say if it's great or not great. But the way I left it was just like, oh, this ain't great. That's my last word. This could be great, but it's not great.
If you do the free to play, you'll effectively get the Forsaken DLC. I think you'll find that's pretty good. The only thing is, there's been so much story. The entry point for someone new and catching up the story is
massive. Probably
is difficult, but the game modes and mechanics from then and all the other stuff, it's worth you guys giving it a go. But
we did
once
dabble.
you start, you can't stop. That's the problem. It's like Pringles.
Yeah, we did dabble with D2 when it went free to play. I think a whole bunch of us went back for a bit. I gave up quite quickly when it started invading my screen with microtransactions. I was like, I'm not having any more of that. Thank you.
No, it's all gone now, and like they've gone RPG. They've got artifacts with different mods every season.
That sounds a little bit more like my cup of tea.
Okay. They are adding new perks to the sandbox every 3 months that actually materially add difference. Right, you've got each body armor set, helmets and legs have like 5 perk slots. There's you can do quite a lot of different builds. It really has. If you've not played it since that, it's in a completely different place.
Complexity.
It's got loads. It's got loads.
Yeah.
You'll find it overwhelming when you
That's
come
all
back.
I wanted to know, right? Because basically, Warframe, I mean, not super complex, but complex, right? Even Diablo, right? Lots of depth. That's all I ever wanted for Destiny, Yeah, no, please don't dumb this down for me. Please don't do that.
They stripped it back and brought it all back in a good way, and the PvP maps is a problem for me, and the game modes, because they haven't touched that, but they're saying they're going to do that.
I find that quite strange for 2 years, though. I mean, like you said, they're moving to new franchises, but it's such a weird thing to do, because I thought there was a big PvP
PvP was
community.
one of the key bits of it.
Yeah, no, it's still good. I think they tried to make it a competitive mode, and they gave up on it because the bombastic kind of fun nature of explosions and that's what PvP is. It's not competitive mode, and they've left it like that, and that's fine. On the PvE front, if you've been playing like I have, there's not enough strikes and game modes.
Jay, don't say that. Don't say there's not enough strikes.
No. There's no. For me, who's been playing all the time, there's not enough new ones. For you, if you came by and you play it, it's fine. They need to beef that up a little bit. But they've also said, I mean, they've had some amazing raids, new ones, amazing, and they've got things like mini versions of dungeons, and they've had other kind of more complex, repeatable 3-player missions, and some of that are amazing. Like there's one that was out recently, I forgot what it was. It's called Presage. It's almost like boarding a ship with alien style, right? It almost felt like a mini raid, but like a smaller version. But they've got what they've said going forwards from December. Every 3 months there will be a new raid or reprise raid or a new dungeon, right? and that's when you do the kind of 6-player activities, which I can carry on a weekend with my friends. That's enough. Maybe that with a sprinkling of some more PvP maps, that will keep me going for forever, basically. And I think that's what most hardcore players really come back for that stuff, right?
That's very true.
No, the raids are just...
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about, you know, the Destiny raids are, you know, I think personally amongst the best. I will say, like, this expansion, what's it gonna give the community though? Because like I did see the cinematic, and I thought to myself, well, it looks kind of interesting, but what is it gonna actually give the players? Because, like, you know, is it not just campaign, or is it a bit more than that?
So it's basically going to give... It's mostly on the PvE side, right? So it's going to give a new planet, and they gave a new planet last year. I'm assuming you'll be they haven't actually said the exact amounts of, like, you know, strikes and exact amount of content. They'll probably do that later in the year. But we'll have some more strikes. It will have more loot, and they're introducing a new weapon type. But since you last played, there's been a few. I mean, were bows part of when you... Were there bows when you were playing?
No. I don't think they were. But I mean, I did follow it when they introduced it.
Yeah. So they're adding a new weapon type, which is a kind of a... I don't know what they actually call it now. I've got it open here. It's like it's a melee weapon that you can also fire, and it's a bit like a staff, is that they say, like a stick type thing. They're adding that. They're adding, well, so what they actually originally committed to is every big DLC every year they were going to add a new subclass. So they added Stasis last year. So you had Solar, Void, and Arc, and they added Stasis last year, and they originally committed to one new Dark subclass with each one of these expansions. There were 3, now there was 4, because they said they couldn't fit it in. Because they had a lot of problems with Stasis last year, they've actually said they're delaying the Dark subclass, but what they are doing is reworking all 3 of the original subclasses every 3 months next year, which is a big thing. So Stasis added which is one of the subclasses last year, made it more customizable versus having fixed trees, right? And they're going to make the original subclasses more customizable, right? Which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you add it with the customization you get across the different armor types, plus the artifact that has loads of mods, plus the guns, plus the different types of gun. You know, even like each exotic has unique perks and unique characteristics. Like, you know, you get a pistol in Call of Duty, it's just a pistol with a different skin. Maybe it might fire a bit fast, but they have lots of different quirks and with each gun, which no other game has, right? So yeah, but to come back to your question, it's mostly that. They're also... Destiny hasn't had many new enemies types, right? Since you last played, there's been the Scorn, and then they've iterated within the sub.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Enemy types, but yeah, that there's
they've not introduced new factions, is what I would say.
Yeah, that they did with the Scorn, which I think that there's been new since you last played. There might be one other, which I can't remember. Were the Taken there when you played?
I think
they were. Yeah,
I think they were.
Yeah, Taken. Okay, so Scorn was afterwards, but they've actually added a few enemy types within each of the families, and then one of the big things they've got is they're iterating on the what's the main enemy type again? Sorry, I've got a bit of a blank here. What are they called?
The Cabal.
Not the Cabal. The
Forsaken.
No, the enemy type. I've just had a bit of a. Who was it in the Taken Queen? What was the enemy type in there? It'll come back to me. But they basically one of the existing enemy types. They've basically made Guardians within one of the enemy types that have the same powers as Guardians and a Ghost.
That's it. That's when I kind of saw the trailer. I noticed that you had the Ghosts, and they basically were just again I've forgotten the kind of enemy types here as well. But they had these Ghosts, and they were just kind of bringing back to life some of we've got to find the name of the enemy.
Oh, it's the Hive.
Yeah, the Hive.
That's right. The Hive. Yeah.
You basically had Hive Ghosts, and the Hive Ghosts were bringing back to life Hive. At the end of that kind of cinematic trailer, I noticed that 3 Hives were just basically dashing forward, or jumping forward. they changed color to represent some of these, you know, these abilities, these subclasses that, you know, you usually, you know, usually see for the main player. So that was quite interesting.
That's right, yeah. And that new weapon type was called it's called a glaive. So it's kind of like a sword that fires a projectile, but it's a first person weapon, where most of the swords are third person in Destiny. They've added that, which is quite a big new thing. And I think the rest of they're basically kept under wraps. I think they'll have another showcase in a few months' time, and then I'm sure they'll have another showcase before it releases. But they've Destiny within their season passes, they throw in some big surprises as well, and there've been some really, you know, some of the reprised weapons that have come back, like the Thorn, if you remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
They've brought them back with missions and stories. There's so much. The lore is so deep in Destiny, right? And the lore telling in the game with story and narrative of people speaking and the steps. Most people probably, unfortunately, won't get a chance to experience that because you have to play it enough. But there is a lot of depth in there, and if you. Reality is, you guys are not going to have the chance to go back and play it. But for a hardcore Destiny player, you know, we're not just all stupidly just playing the game. It's got hooks on so many sides of it.
I've got to sample this for at least 24 hours to see if this is any of this is true. Jay, any of this is true. I do like this. I do like what you're saying. I mean, like it does sound it's basically come on a level. If you know what I mean, it's like, I mean, because, you know, obviously when I and Al left it wasn't in the greatest state. It was almost in a transition period where they were just, like you said, they were stripping it back so they could build it up again.
It was literally the point at which it went free to play. We had, we'll give it a shot, give it a try. Didn't really catch us, I think, for the longer kind of streak on it, but you know, it's probably worth a revisit at Christmas, maybe, just to
that's
dabble,
have
a look.
Bit of Christmas Destiny.
Yeah, but Jay, question for you: have you pre-ordered?
No, I haven't actually, because I'll be honest, right? I hadn't played, and I was trying to walk away, free myself, and then I saw the showcase, and it was really slick, and I pretended to myself like I didn't like it and I wasn't going back. The more I read up on it, I've got sucked back in, and I'm going to end up pre-ordering because I'm going to play the raids next year, and it's a much better package to buy it now because you can. They've also got the Bungie's 30th anniversary towards Christmas time, where they're adding another dungeon in that space and loads of ornaments. If you buy that as part of the deluxe package now, you get that content. I will pre-order it basically. Yeah. I've someone I know in my family who's much older than us said, you know, he spent the whole of his life pretending he didn't like stuff. Like he was talking about cars and wearing flowery shirts, and then he realised he got to an age when he thought he's done very well for himself, and thought, why am I pretending to be something that I'm not, right, just for the sake of it? And he's just gone on a splurge, and that's where I'm at with Destiny, right? It's a love-hate thing. When I love it so much, and when I hate it, I really hate it. It grinds me, and I just need to walk away and play the game.
That's everything in life, though, right? You can hate, you know, the things that you love the most. You know, you hate them all and you love them all. That's the reality.
Yeah. Exactly. And if I stop playing, you guys would invite me back to this podcast, and because I have nothing else to add. So you guys know everything else.
Yeah, you're done. Jay, you're done. Guys, with that said, I think it really is time to kind of move away from Destiny. I think we've agreed Destiny has a destiny, and now it's time to move on to the next topic.